So the question becomes in many people's lives, it doesn't matter whether it's a friend, it doesn't matter whether it's a relative, it doesn't matter whether it's a job that something's happening there. Many times you wake up and say, enough is enough. The question about America today is when is enough? I have no idea. Enough was enough for me when Donald Trump announced he was running for president that I was never voting for him, ever. That would be 2015. I clearly stated he was going to win because of what he said about communist China that no one else is willing to say. And on the margin in Pennsylvania, I even went through the states that he would win. Never voted for him. Today, let's move fast forward. When is enough enough? For example, in his second term, of course, let's go back one day to April 16th, I think, of 2016, when President Trump said to the Washington Post that he was not only going to balance the budget in his first 4 years, he was going to pay off all the debt. Was that not enough for anybody listening to say, man's a complete fool? It would have been enough for me to not vote for somebody who was never going to touch Social Security. It has to be touched. It has to be fixed. That means you're not a serious person. Today, just look back. I don't know, look back a month, look back a week, look to today. First of all, at the National Mall where this giant pool of water is, when is enough enough? Would you put up with someone delaying the 9 p.m. fireworks to speak for a couple of hours so you could stick around? That would be enough is enough for me. Would you put up with somebody saying that there's a 350 gash cut by some terrorist or vandal in the pool rather than a no-bid contract to a buddy of his who couldn't fix the pool? And then you start arresting regular people who put their hands in the pool? I mean, that wasn't enough. I mean, the women stuff, I've already talked about this, like how someone treats women. That's not enough for you. Most people listen to this are very conservative people, and they don't like it when I do this. They're like, Steve, stop doing this because the alternative would have been Joe Biden or Kamala Harris and so forth. It's the same thing for Democrats. Let's just say Biden was elected, and he was. It wasn't enough for you as Democrats, if you're listening, that when he withdrew from Afghanistan, as I said then, and I said last week, a 12-year-old could have done a better job. It wasn't enough for you that women who stayed in Afghanistan were raped, murdered, and now wear giant burqas in 100-degree weather. Not enough for you. Nothing seems to be enough in American society. In Maine, there's a guy named Plattner who Elizabeth Warren and the socialist senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, totally backed, I guess until a couple of hours ago or yesterday. Didn't matter what he had on his chest, didn't matter what he posted, didn't matter what he did. Never enough. It was never enough to say, I'm not supporting this person. And now it looks like he probably will drop out of the race and they'll have to do something about replacing him. But the evil that is in society on both sides, just take the Texas Senate race. Two people that both parties should say to themselves, one is a charlatan pretending to be a Christian on the Democratic side to kind of get votes. Clearly not a Christian. I won't even go into it. On the other side, you have a man who his personal life is a disaster. He's been impeached. It seems like not a good guy. Of course, President Trump backed him and people just voted for him. So it brings you up to this sort of least worst theory that many of my friends have. They voted sometimes even the second time for Trump because they thought Kamala Harris would be worse. Could it be worse than today? If the Republicans controlled both sides of the House, which they do today, what would have happened? Nothing. And if they were in a position they would have been in a position to get more seats in the House and not lose any seats in the House and maybe gain a seat in the Senate. And they would have went through 8 years of, it would have been better than today. Because folks, another topic, just simply foreign policy. If you did vote for President Trump in the first term and you watched the foreign policy stuff and you read John Bolton's book, who I guess may go to jail because I don't know what I don't even know. I don't follow this. But if you follow the people who tried to hold it together, you still had situations where was it enough that he went to North Korea, walked across, shook a guy's hand, called him Little Rocket Man or whatever. That wasn't enough that the deal with communist China never appeared, that they don't even respect the president over in communist China. They laugh their ass off all the time. They're laughing now. None of that was enough. But then you go into the second term. What kind of Republican are you? In a sense, like tariffs on allies. There are many tapes of me saying this is complete foolishness. And now the estimation is that it's cost the world trade or world economy is about $1 trillion. So one person with crazy tariffs that go up and down that nobody can actually plan on, right? And yet it wasn't enough for the foreign leaders. In other words, if I had been the leader of Canada and my name was Trudeau, by the way, totally unqualified guy to be the premier for so long. His father was qualified, but he wasn't. What was the point of him going to Florida? And then when Trump said Canada was really the 51st state and questioned the boundaries and all this kind of stuff, when was it enough for Canada? It still really isn't, although what's happened with all the allies is that they put up with it. They tried to find ways to placate him. They bring over King Charles, and they know President Trump likes being treated like that. But what's happened, and I said would happen, right when this all started, over a year ago, is that the game was over. The world in which America controls everything among the free world and everybody else chips in, not enough, and Trump was right about that, that game is over. Carney, who took over in Canada, and only won against a conservative because they hated Trump so badly, right? So he got him elected. He got a liberal left of center guy, not really totally liberal, I guess. And he is working with allies, as he should be, about a new world order where they're just not going to do the American thing. They're not going to buy stuff from America. They're not going to buy wartime stuff from America. They're going to send their aluminum elsewhere. This is all going to be permanent, folks. Permanent, hurting America. It was way better for us to control everything and then cajole people to put in for whatever had to be, NATO. And Trump did a good job of getting people more money into NATO. But when was it enough for the Europeans? It really wasn't enough when he decided he wanted to take Denmark. That wasn't enough for the Europeans. It's still not enough. These people are bizarre. Now they're changing the way they're doing, but let me repeat this for like the 10th time. The way to react if you're a foreign leader to Donald Trump is when he put a tariff on your goods, that you double down and put double the tariffs. Or in Canada's case, don't send the electricity to Michigan. Just to hell with it. You're not going to put up with it. You already have an agreement. If he puts 10% tariffs, you put 20. When he says he's going to 100, go to 200. Trump couldn't have taken the heat on that, right? But they didn't. They tried to keep placating him, saying they'll spend this much money, they'll do this, they'll do that. When it came time for the Iran war, I've already spoken about the fact that I'm totally for regime change, and Trump has handled this so badly, never got prepared, always wants to placate dictators, etc. And so here we are today, where I guess looks like he may bomb them again, but he might not. And then the truce is over, but it may not be over. It's you're dealing with a complete narcissist, my friends. And it would have been better to have Kamala Harris as president, quite frankly, than this, because this is a disaster. We don't have 3% growth, real growth. We had 1.6, and now we're running at like 0.6. We have a fascist president who's taking public stakes with the United States government money in public companies. It started with U.S. Steel in the Golden Ticket. I thought I was watching a Willy Wonka movie, I've said. It goes on with company after company. None of this is necessary. None of this should be happening. Every Republican be saying, we're not doing this. Every congressman, every senator should be saying, we're not doing this. We don't do this. Because when Democrats take over, they're not going to take control of a company. They're going to take control of entire healthcare. That's what's going to happen. Do you not get this? Like, why is everybody so short-term? Because the president is the most short-term person who's ever been elected president. He couldn't care less about what happens after he's president. He doesn't care who gets elected. He doesn't care what happens in the midterms. He doesn't care. So the foreign leaders' reaction to the Iran war should have been, sure, we're in Spain. We're sending our ships over. They don't have any ships. I mean, effectively, they could send a frigate. The United Kingdom should have sped sending our one lone aircraft carrier with no support. We're just going to send it down that way and see what happens. That would have been the best reaction. They don't even know how to react. Today, why are the Democrats not reacting by simply dismissing him? Why get angry? They can't because Biden was so old that he couldn't function and they defended him. But what they should be saying is what I said about my mayoral city head of the city council, Aram Garabedian, God rest his soul if he's still alive or if he's passed away, I don't know. But he was really old. He hated being old. So I would just say things like, a long, long, long time ago, I'm sure Mr. Garabedian did a lot of great things for the city. I hope he's okay. That's what they should say about President Trump, who's clearly failing. Instead, what you have is Marco Rubio, who could have gotten out, as I wrote in January, but now can't. Instead, you have Marco Rubio trying to defend why he's falling asleep by saying he's not falling asleep. This is like so Orwellian. Like the man is sound asleep on videos. And by the way, I don't care if he sleeps or not. I really don't. Reagan slept all the time. But he's saying he's not sleeping. And that he calls him at all hours of the night, which he does, which is completely out of control, which I would not take the call all the time from president if I was Secretary of State. I'd be like, listen, from 11 to 7, don't call me. Unless the world blew up. I don't want to hear from you. I would have someone else answer the phone and say, we're not waking him up. I got to get some sleep. So just because the president's a complete numbnut, you don't have to be one. But all the people, the lesson of life, all the people who are associated with Donald Trump today will have far worse lives for doing so. They may have power for a while, like the Secretary of Commerce, who said he didn't know Epstein, but I guess he did know Epstein. And anyway, we go on all day about this, but that's the real question. And it gets back to the point I was making earlier. I'm going to finish with this. Please take my advice. Do not ever vote for the least worst candidate. What has happened because of that, because you're Republican or you're Democrat, you get worse candidates. We have had worse presidents since Clinton left office at a continual basis all along. George Bush wasn't so great. Great man. I had dinner with him when he opened the library, not with him personally, but I sat right 4 feet from him. And he couldn't have been a nicer guy. Barack Obama, I don't know if he's a nice guy, not a terrible president. And then it gets worse. Trump's worse, Biden's worse, and Trump 2 is worse than Biden 2. All this stuff is destroying America. And we don't even know as a society what would be better. We don't insist on what would be better. Better schools, fixing Social Security, no budget deficit. We don't insist on this. And now we got a real problem because we can't have higher rates, but we have higher rates. Good luck.